I'm Michelle Tyreen Johnson. Welcome to Race Unwrapped, a podcast unwrapping all the ways race affects our world, whether we're thinking about it or not. My guest this episode is Dawn Wilson. She's an information technology contractor and a part-time fencing coach. Yeah, I said that right, a fencing coach. We talk about her particularly unique intersection of race and gender as a Black trans woman. That's all coming up on Race Unwrapped from Louisville Public Media. Welcome to Race Unwrapped. I'm Michelle Tyreen Johnson. My guest today is Dawn Wilson, information technology contractor and part-time fencing coach. This season is talking about the intersection between race and gender for women of color and how that plays out in a society where when people talk about race, they tend to be talking about the men, and when people are talking about gender, they're usually talking about white women. And you have a really unique perspective on all of this because see, I'm afraid that if however way I say it, I'm going to say it wrong.
Well, I'm African American, and I'm an African American transgender woman.
So what do you think, being a transgender woman, what do you think is one of the biggest challenges in our society when it comes to the intersection of how people see you and how they take you seriously? Because you have, even an extra layer to add on to all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's society as a whole. I grew up in a Black religious family, okay? And one of the things that I learned early on from my aunts is that being silent does not protect you. But you don't have to be in somebody's face. You basically can observe them and then immediately catch them and call them. So I kind of got that viewpoint, think like maybe a queen talking to a king, and basically persuasion is used there. The extra layer for me, though, was, I had to get past the religious part of it. And that's because you're condemned, right? You hear it all the time in churches.
Right.
You talk about, they got a little sugar in them. And, when I transitioned, when I came out to my aunt, and actually that's a funny situation, I had stored all of my, let's just say the Klinger collection in a steam trunk. And I was at graduate school when I came in.
A what collection? Let me interrupt you. A what collection?
Well, the Klinger collection is a nickname for anybody who was a cross-dresser or whatever you want to call it. It comes from the, you ever heard the TV series MASH?
Oh, yeah. Oh, Klinger. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a joke. I mean, it's like, are you serious?
I
but I
totally
grew
get
up
it now.
yeah. So it's really wild because actually, when I came in from class that day, I was in graduate school. I came in from class that day, and it's nothing like my aunt Luella, who raised me, did not see because I had gone to parties as my alternative self, and I came in the room and they said, "Hey, you got anything to tell us?" Now this is her older sister, my aunt Cindy Bell, and they're sitting on the couch, which I should have thought something was up then. But of course, I'm clueless and I'm going, nothing I can think of. Why are you here? You need a ride somewhere? And she goes, well, it's kind of funny. We went and was looking for some of the papers that you had about, you written about the family. And I said, well, they should be on my desk. They said the funny part about it was we went and looked, we didn't see them there, and we looked in the foot locker. And I can tell you my heart was in my stomach and was about to come out my backside. So, and I was like, okay, yeah, I see where this is going. And at that point, they could see the look on my face and said, this is not a persecution. We just want to know, is this where you're going? Is this what's going on? And I said, yeah. And they said, well, we kind of figured that. And I'm looking at them like, what are you talking about? And then they started giving me the history. They had grown up with James Herndon, a.k.a. Sweet Evening Breeze. They
Okay.
knew all about this. And then I found out I had a cousin named Calvin who was trans. And in those days, they didn't call it trans, they just called it effeminate. And then I found out about my cousin Glenn, who was a dance teacher. And I'm going, oh, so this is nothing new. And they said, no, we all knew about it. Just, we knew about it since you were little. And I'm going, well, how come you didn't tell me?
Right.
um, so, it's the familiar thing. I mean, in Black families, Black males have been so demonized that, you get this uber masculinity. I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Yeah.
beyond,
Yeah.
I had to fight in school, left, right, and center. I mean, I threw down hard. I mean, I played sports. I was. You couldn't be a brain. You were beyond repulsive as far as some people are concerned. So you had to learn how to fight. And one of the lessons I got as a little kid was I used to run home from the bullies, and my uncle one day told me, he said, "If you run past home, keep going.
Mm.
Don't stop. Just keep going." And, here I had been, 4 years old. I had lost my dad and my mom in the same year. I was being raised by somebody I cared about, I loved. And for him to say that was like a knife, right?
Mm.
But, it made me stand up and fight. And when I came home, black eye, bloody nose, whatever it was, he was like, okay, we get it now. And so it is important for all of us to stand up. And so that's what they taught me in doing it that way. Not the best way to do it, but you know,
Well,
um,
and that's the thing. It's not like families, regardless of what the family is, has any training in how to know how to raise a child with love that isn't what they planned on raising, if you know what I mean.
right. Well, and in my case, I was raised by these people, and
Hmm.
I was always around. I had cousins who were girls. I had everybody I played sports with in my neighborhood was girls. I mean, um, so say what you will. I mean, I had a first cousin that stayed with me, and she was like my babysitter permanently in the house. And she was a girl, and other family members. This is type stuff that people did it imprint on me. No, it was always there. I just never really. I had no words to express it. And it wasn't until after I got that history lesson and met Sweet Evening Breeze
Mm.
that I understood, and understood what it meant to be who you were, to not let somebody take it away from you, and to defend yourself, whether it's verbally, as they call it today, reading. I was like, back in the day, we read people like libraries. I don't know where this is a big deal. Just because you see it on some shows, because it happened all the time. I mean, this is how you dealt with that. You dealt with it with, the sass. You dealt with it with the way you dressed. You owned the room when you came into it. You didn't just walk in and slide to the side. You owned that room.
I
You owned
love
your
that.
presence.
I love that phrase. I'm going to remember that. You own the room you walk into. I love it.
I've had to do it so many times in life. After I transitioned, and of course, my uncle didn't speak to me
Mm.
for a week.
How old were you when you transitioned?
I was 25, 26,
Okay.
and I had done military service, and people were like, this is something you just don't discuss, right? Um, and I explained to some folks. I said, I've seen some of the ugliness, and I've seen what people do on and off and out. I know it. I have friends who have PTSD. I know what it is when I see it. And I have friends who transitioned as well. I have a friend who was in the same squad as me, and they came out straight up gay. And they were gay when they went in, and they were more gay when they came out. We were in the same high school class. Um, so it was interesting. But in terms of my uncle, it was really unique because he asked me to give him a ride somewheres, and we rode to his house, and he talked to this gentleman. He gets in the car, and as we're driving away, he tells me, he said, "That's my son by another woman." And I'm sitting in his car going, okay. And he says, "Yes, and your aunt knows." He said, "But I show you this because he is not somebody I would trust, period." He said, "You are my kid.
Mm,
Your father was my best friend.
mm,
This is your part of me." He said, "I may not like something. I may not understand something." He said, "But I had friends who were like you."
mm,
And I'm like, "Come again?" And that's when I found out about some of his other friends who were gay.
mm,
And, up until the day they passed, I had relatives in my family said, "Well, they didn't really accept you." Well, you could have shocked me because every time I turned around, I never heard a cross word, a negative word, or whatever. And they were always telling me, supporting me. And one of the things my uncle did, he had a gay friend who died in the condo place they were at. And because the way it was set up, the gay guy could not have his partner.
mm,
He said, "I don't want that to happen to you.
mm,
Don't let that happen to you. Whatever you do, because we won't be here forever." And
wow.
then that was what was said to me. So when somebody came to me with the negativity, I mean, there were family members in my family that cut me off, just done. We
Mm,
don't ever want to talk to you again. Um, and each step, my uncle and aunt defended me, and I was there to the day they died. I watched them die.
mm,
So when somebody tells me about their family not accepting them, my thing to them is continue to love them.
mm,
And
right.
every time there's a funeral, they're going to call you, right? It's typical. And I tell them all the time, I said, "Well, you can call me. I'll come. Not a big deal. I helped bury Monsignor. I was one of the pallbearers." So, but it was me. It was not some, cross whatever. It was me
Right.
uh, in that black pantsuit, with my hair down and the pearls around my neck, uh, talking about her legacy
Hmm.
and leading, as they march, as we march behind that coffin slow.
How long has it been since you transitioned? Like,
I transitioned in, let's see, 1996, 97,
okay,
because that's how the process started.
okay.
And in 1998, I was I was heading up on Capitol Hill, fighting for gender rights. It was quite an amazing turn. So I've been out for more than 25 years. You know,
Yeah, I was just trying to get a sense of the span, your lifespan in terms of what you've seen from a whole lot of different perspectives. For example, what do you think is one of the most notable things that you've seen as a woman who's trans today versus 20 years ago?
oh good Lord. We are now seeing trans women who are elected to office. If you told me 20 some odd years ago that that was going to happen, I would have said you're out of your mind. If you had told me all the times that myself and Monica Roberts, who lived with me for more than 10 years, when I had a huge house, I mean, if you told any of us that we would, the work we did, a meeting with, Maxine Waters and Elijah Cummings and, John Lewis and the Black Congressional Caucuses and to be called by the white trans community the N word for your efforts. Um,
Mm,
yeah, that type of stuff, it goes deep. But to see what has happened now when people hear these histories, when they see what happened, and they ended up, scholarships named after them. I mean, I have a scholarship named after me. You have trans people of color, trans people not of color, sitting on school boards across the country. Judges. Now we have
mhm.
legislators. Uh, that's a major change. We're seeing us on TV and not as a joke. You know, first time I seen somebody as a trans person was Flip Wilson, Geraldine.
Oh yeah.
You know how that was, right?
Yeah, we're about the same. We must be about the same age because not many people both could get. I didn't hear you when you said Klinger, but once you said Klinger, I was like, duh, of course. And then now that you mentioned Flip Wilson and Geraldine, I kid you not, as a little kid, I had a Flip Wilson Geraldine doll. And
Oh, everybody did.
right,
Everybody.
I mean, let me ask you this question. Which do you think changes first, though? Do you think that people seeing other folks in sort of entertainment situations in non-joke ways comes before the more substantive, serious things, or is it the other way around?
You know, to be honest with you, I think everybody was exposed to it as the joke, right? Like we talked about Geraldine and Flip Wilson, who we later find out was gay. You know, all the way to Shanae.
You just outed Flip Wilson to me. I didn't know he was gay. Okay, see, that ain't right that you outed him to me.
I mean, it was in Jet magazine. It was all over Jet magazine. Come on, it hit Jeff. It was back in the days of the Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, and he blurted it out. I was like, what? You know, like nobody knew. So but. Yeah, the joke came first. And then you started seeing professors and lawyers like Roberta Angela D., Dr. Marissa Richmond. I mean, that was the first time anybody had seen somebody like them on a stage, you know? And that's what you fight for. We're fighting for our children and our next generations to be somebody, because we ain't going to be here long, you know? We don't know how long we'll be here, but we owe them something better than what we had. Not to saying it was all horrible, but, you know, for some people it was.
I mean, I couldn't have asked you to explain that better than you did about, you know, just the importance of why we do what any of us do. And in your case, you know, you are speaking for more than one constituency of the heart, so to speak. So
I'll say one last thing, and definitely I know that this is something that everybody should understand, and I say this to everybody who's listening. You know, if you're not at the table, you damn well but believe you're going to be on the menu, and you don't want to be the main course. So it's best to be at the table.
Yes, my girl. Okay, all right. As I realize that I feel like this podcast is just my way of making new friends here in Louisville. So, thank you for your time. It meant the world to me.
Well, thank you for asking. It meant the world to me to be asked.
That was Dawn Wilson. I'm Michelle Tyreen Johnson. Thanks for listening to Race Unwrapped.
Race Unwrapped is produced by Michelle Tyreen Johnson for Louisville Public Media. Our senior producer is Laura Ellis. Allison Cross created our music. For more information, to contact us, or to support Race Unwrapped, visit wfpl.org/raceunwrapped.